Peasants in the 14th century. How were peasants affected during the 14th century? Black Death. When the Black Death began spreading across Europe, peasants living in rural areas had a better chance of surviving than peasants living in cities because the rats carrying the disease liked to stay in the city. Any peasants who survived the Black Death were given higher wages but suffered with high taxes. 100 Years' War. When the 100 Years' War broke out, it was very popular among peasants and poor knights because they were promised regular wages if they enlisted. However, after the 100 Years' War ended, peasants were hit with heavy taxation which would lead to peasant revolts. Fur-collar crime. After the 100 Years' War, nobles were getting hit with inflation and had very little to do. As a result, nobles began robbing peasants and would force them to pay a protection fee. The peasants couldn't do anything about this as the nobles would threaten witnesses and pay off judges. These crimes would go on for decades as people were afraid to stop them. These crimes are what led to the creation of the folk legend Robin Hood. Peasant revolts. After many years of disease, famine, and heavy taxation, the peasants began attacking the higher classes. The peasant revolts occurred mostly in England, France, and Flanders, and usually ended in a lot of death. A notable revolt called the Jacquerie occurred in France, where the peasants would slice nobles' necks, burn down their castles, and kill their horses. Life in the parish. In the later Middle Ages, the farmland in the parish was the main focus for peasants. The peasants would have the parish priest bless their fields before the annual planting. For fun, peasants would participate in archery or wrestling or watch bull baiting and bear baiting. Vernacular literature. Most documents and literature in Europe was written in Latin or French, but beginning in the 14th century, people began speaking and writing in their native language. This gave peasants the opportunity to learn to read and write. The three notable books that impacted Europe's culture include the Divine Comedy, the Canterbury Tales, and Grand Testament.